If you're dying to see what happens next and want to stay 5 episodes ahead in this series and others, then why wait? Join our awesome community of over 500 members on Patreon, where they're already enjoying the latest episodes right now for as little as $2.50 for your first month. So what are you waiting for? Hop over to Patreon after this video and get exclusive early access. With that said, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the page, and I'll see you in the next one. The battlefield looked like a war zone, split open by titanic energy, filled with floating chunks of rock and thick clouds of dust swirling through the sky like a brewing storm. Down below, surrounded by shattered ground and blazing embers, 4 warriors stood together in the rubble: Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Piccolo. Each of them was bruised, battered, and breathing heavily, but they were far from done. Vegeta wiped a trail of blood from the corner of his mouth. He let out a sharp breath and gave a cocky grin, one that only a proud Saiyan prince could pull off, even with his armor cracked and his legs trembling beneath him. He muttered through clenched teeth, staring into the sky. Not so smug now, are you? Gohan stood just beside him, his eyes glowing with intense gold. Lightning crackled off his thick frame, and his long hair rippled in the wind like fire. His fists were already raised. "Stay alert," he said in a low voice, eyes fixed on the sky. He's mad, but he's not down. A few feet above the ground, Piccolo floated beside Gohan, his long white cape shredded and stained with green blood. A hole had been torn clean through his side just minutes ago, but his Namekian healing was already stitching it shut, muscle by muscle. "This is when he's most dangerous," Piccolo said quietly, his eyes sharp, antennae twitching toward the source of the threat. Then the sky itself shook. High above, the shadowed figure of the Guardian lit up in a burning glow. The shape of his body, once calm and armored, was now pulsing with raw, unstable power. Bits of armor dropped off him like crumbling glass, vanishing into golden sparks before they hit the ground. And then came the sound, a howl so loud, so fierce, that it rattled the earth like thunder from another dimension. "Gurra!" The Guardian roared, and in that instant, everything exploded. "Look out!" Goku shouted, but he was already too late. The Guardian unleashed a massive shockwave of energy. A blazing dome of white-hot light tore outward from his body in every direction. Boom! The air cracked. The sky lit up like a second sun. The very planet cried out beneath their feet. Mountains shattered into dust. Jagged cracks webbed through the battlefield like broken glass. Chunks of rock were vaporized the moment they touched the Guardian's energy. Gohan was the first to react. He crossed his arms tight in front of him and dug in. Even with all his strength, the shockwave slammed into him like a freight train. He skidded backward through the air, boots scraping up sparks along the ground. Piccolo quickly threw up both hands and summoned a glowing barrier, an energy shield that pulsed green. The light wavered and cracked, barely holding back the wave of destruction. Behind him, Goku and Vegeta crouched low, bracing themselves with grit teeth. They took cover behind Piccolo's shield, dust and debris pelting their sides like bullets. When the wave finally died down, the 4 warriors stood again, shaken but alive. They looked up just in time to see the Guardian, a blur of light and shadow, already charging down from the sky. His speed was unreal. The air itself couldn't keep up. Whoosh! Before they could blink, he was there. Rah! The Guardian bellowed, and with a sound like a bomb going off, he swung a brutal right hook toward Gohan. Crack! Gohan didn't flinch. His forearm shot up in time, blocking the punch. But the impact exploded in shockwaves so huge they flattened a mountain range in the distance. The raw force of it sent a quake through Gohan's whole body. His arms rattled, his feet dragged through the dirt, carving deep trenches beneath him. "Damn, he's too strong," Gohan muttered. "What has he become?" He narrowed his eyes. Something was different. The Guardian's body was shifting, glowing with layered energy. Even the shape of his aura had changed. "Is this a new form?" Gohan thought. He didn't like the answer his instincts gave him. In that same breath, the Guardian whipped around with a lightning-fast spin kick toward Piccolo's head. Wham! Piccolo raised his arm just in time. The Guardian's kick slammed into his block and sent him flying back through the air, blood flying from a fresh tear in his arm. He hissed through gritted teeth, green blood dripping down his fingers. Even braced, the Guardian's strength felt like getting hit by a planet. "There is no hope in you fools defeating me. Not as I am now," the Guardian growled, his voice cold and deep like thunder in a cave. I am now one with my brother. Our power has returned to its original state. And from the beginning, we were some of the strongest guards ever to serve Lord Zeno. He didn't give them time to react. He vanished and reappeared between Brohan and Piccolo, arms already in motion. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta! A flurry of blows rained down in a blur. Fists, palms, elbows, charged with blue fire. Each one struck like a cannon. Brohan and Piccolo moved together. No plan, no training, just instinct and raw battle awareness. Brohan ducked and spun, delivering a blazing uppercut toward the Guardian's ribs, while Piccolo countered from behind with a double demon wave, streaks of purple light twisting through the air. The sky lit up with shockwaves, after images flashing in every direction. The sound of fists colliding echoed like thunderclaps. Brohan's moves were wild but focused. Tight footwork, clean dodges, powerful counters. He flowed like a trained brawler, but hit like a berserker. Elbow strikes cracked against the Guardian's armor. And yet, he kept charging in, again and again, no matter how many hits he took. The rage was building in his eyes. His muscles tightened. His attacks came faster. The Broly in him was beginning to break through. God Piccolo moved like liquid lightning. His limbs snapped and weaved with a calm precision, reading the Guardian's movements as if watching a play he'd already seen. Every dodge was exact. Every counterattack landed with surgical force. Short, snapping knife hand strikes to pressure points and joints. His style wasn't about power, it was about mastery. And beside him, Brohan fought with a fire that could have ignited the sky. He ducked under a wide, raging punch and countered with a brutal knee strike that slammed deep into the Guardian's gut. Just as the deity reeled, Piccolo flipped overhead in one smooth motion and brought his heel down in a devastating axe kick right onto the Guardian's shoulder. Thum! The combo hit like thunder. The Guardian was blasted downward, crashing into the ground hard enough to leave a crater. He snarled, just for a second, dazed from the synchronized blow. And that second was all Brohan needed. With a roar, he twisted into a spinning reverse roundhouse kick, his foot glowing with raw ki, his heel connected flush with the Guardian's face. Smash! The impact echoed across the ruined battlefield. The Guardian was sent flying like a missile, tearing through the last remaining stone pillar in the distance. The rock exploded into ash on impact. His body kept going, vanishing into a cloud of dust. Brohan landed beside Piccolo, panting but focused. Sweat rolled down his temples, but his stance never dropped. Across the field, Goku and Vegeta rose slowly into the air, battle-worn but alive. Goku's face lit up with a flash of hope as he watched their friends push back the impossible. They're doing it. They're actually holding him off, he said, voice soft but amazed. Dust clung to his GI. Dried blood was caked across his cheek. Vegeta floated beside him, scowling, but that fire in his eyes was back. Ch! He spat. He's strong, but he can bleed. Sure enough, down the field, a thin stream of golden blood dripped from a fracture in the Guardian's armor, right where Brohan's kick had hit. It glowed against his dark skin like molten metal. Goku turned, his eyes sharpening. Vegeta, can you still fight? Vegeta cracked his neck, then smirked. Of course, I won't let you outdo me, Kakarot. His aura flared just slightly, a ripple of energy that hadn't been there before. Thanks to Brohan lending me his energy, I was able to siphon a good portion back, he added, rolling his shoulders, fists clenched tight. Suddenly, the wind shifted. Across the battlefield, the Guardian slowly hovered back into view, his outline flickering with divine rage. He wiped a glowing smear of ichor from the edge of his mouth. His mismatched eyes, one burning red, the other pitch black, were wide and wild. He looked confused, angry, rattled. No mortals had ever pushed him this far before. Inside his head, the two voices that made up his fused being snarled together in distorted rage. A low, grinding tone that buzzed through the air like broken static. You pathetic worms, he bellowed. How am I being pushed back? By mortals, he thought, furious. How are they predicting me? Then realization dawned. It's the Namekian. He's reading my thoughts. He was right. Piccolo stood motionless, antennae twitching ever so slightly. His gaze was unblinking, cold. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But in his mind, He saw every move before the Guardian even made it, and every time he learned something new, he passed it to Gohan through quick telepathic pulses. That's why they were landing hits. That's why they were keeping up. They knew his moves before he made them. The Guardian's hands shook with fury. Then he raised both arms into the sky. The clouds above twisted instantly, pulling into a swirling cyclone, as if the heavens were being sucked down by invisible chains. Lightning crackled through the sky in jagged webs of gold and blue. "I'll end you in a single blow," the Guardian roared. Above his palms, a new energy began to form. An orb that blazed like a star. Its center glowed bright blue, spiraling violently, while its edges burned gold. This was the same energy that had wounded him, but now it was condensed, focused, and aimed at one target. He was going for God Piccolo. He was trying to take out the brains behind the resistance. Gohan's eyes flared wide. "Everyone, scatter!" he shouted, sensing the crushing weight of the forming attack. The warriors began to move, and then a purple streak tore across the battlefield like a thunderclap. Boom! A new energy snapped into place, sharp and cold and final. A god had returned. Lord Beerus appeared between the Guardian and the others, hovering with arms outstretched and a burning purple aura swirling violently around him. Dust whipped in every direction from the force of his divine ki. His yellow eyes narrowed into razor-thin slits. His voice was calm, but filled with wrath. "You dare call me a piece of garbage?" Beerus said, his voice like ice cracking under pressure. Two spheres of glowing purple destruction bloomed in his hands. Hakai energy, raw and unfiltered. "I am the god of destruction of this universe," he growled. "And you treat me like this." The aura around him flared like wildfire. "From the very beginning, I've been disrespected. You locked me in a prison for 2 years. You killed countless of my fellow gods. And your war took the life of my angel." The glow around his hands intensified. "I, Lord Beerus, will kill you all." His voice cracked at the edge, not with fear, but fury. His power surged, raw and wild. He wasn't fighting for duty anymore. He was fighting from pain, from rage. "I don't care if you didn't start this war," he spat. "I've had enough." He stared up at the Guardian. "Everything shall burn." Beerus was no longer holding back. "Lord Beerus!" Goku shouted, eyes wide as the sky pulsed with pressure. He'd never seen the god of destruction like this before. The air around Beerus was vibrating with heat, flickering with violet fire. His energy wasn't just rising, it was devouring everything around him. Pebbles floated upward, then crumbled into dust. The ground beneath his feet, gone. It disintegrated under the pressure of his fury. Vegeta stood beside Goku, jaw tight, his arms tense like drawn steel. He could feel it. The sheer volume of godly ki crashing down on the battlefield like a tidal wave. "Kakarot," he said quietly, without even turning. "I don't think there's anything we could say to calm him down now." He shook his head. "Not even the world's most delicious food would work. He's lost it." Goku looked down, his fists shaking. "Yeah, but I don't want to fight Beerus again," he said, voice low. "That's why we sealed him in that prison. He wasn't part of this war. We knew if he got involved, he'd have to fight the other gods." He closed his eyes. "That's why we kept him out." But it was too late now. High above them, the Guardian narrowed his eyes at the glowing figure of Lord Beerus. The swirling orb of energy he'd built up over his head still crackled, but it held, and for a moment, just a moment, he paused. He sneered, his deep voice echoing like a drum across the heavens. "So, the cat dares to bare its fangs," he said, mocking. "You must be Beerus, the so-called god of destruction, who failed to keep his mortals in line." He floated forward a step, his tone laced with venom. "Zeno-sama will be very interested to hear how easily you were swatted aside." Beerus's ears flattened against his head, his claws twitched, his eyes narrowed into furious slits. But he didn't move, because now, standing before him, were the twin guards of Zeno. The same beings who once stood behind the king of everything. He couldn't attack, not recklessly, not now. Vegeta had been wrong. There was a way to calm the destroyer's fury, and both Saiyans just saw it. Fear. But the moment didn't last. In a blur of motion, the Guardian moved, faster than thought. In less than a blink, he was upon Beerus. His hand, until now buried in the dirt, flashed up. 2 fingers jabbed directly into Beerus's throat. "Crunch! Gah!" Beerus choked, His eyes bulged. His entire body froze as the blow crushed his windpipe before he could react. And in the same breath, the Guardian's other hand drove forward in a brutal palm strike to the chest. Crack! The sound of ribs shattering echoed like cannon fire through the crater. Beerus staggered backward, clutching his throat, trying to breathe. Purple Hakai energy sparked in one hand, but fizzled out. His focus was gone. He couldn't summon it. Not now. He stumbled, coughing, choking on his own breath. The Guardian stood tall and calm, wiping the blood from his lip with slow, casual grace. Then, his aura exploded outward. He wasn't holding back anymore. "You insolent god!" The Guardian snarled. His voice doubled, like two beings speaking through the same mouth, one full of wrath, the other drenched in sadistic joy. He lunged, and in one swift motion, he grabbed Beerus by the throat, lifting the lean purple god off the ground like he was weightless. Beerus gagged, claws scratching at the Guardian's wrist. His legs kicked violently. Small ki blasts fired from his hands, tiny orbs of purple power that exploded uselessly against the Guardian's burning aura. Once mighty, now helpless. High above, Goku felt a stone drop in his chest. "No! Beerus!" he screamed, shooting forward to help. But before he could get far, a hand grabbed his shoulder mid-air. "Piccolo." "Don't," Piccolo said, quiet but firm. His eyes said the rest. It was too late. And even if it wasn't, Goku, in his current state, wasn't strong enough to do anything. They couldn't break formation. Too much was riding on this. The lives of everyone, his family, the Eternal Dragons, the Namekians, the universe itself, even his own life. God Piccolo knew the cost. Below, the Guardian leaned in closer, his mismatched eyes boring into Beerus's. "You have failed, Destroyer," he whispered. His grip tightened. Energy surged into his gauntlet, crackling between his claws like lightning in a jar. "Failed your duty, failed your universe." He raised him higher. "And now," he grinned, "you die as the failure you are." Lord Beerus coughed, his voice raspy, shaking with a mix of pride and pain. "I won't be judged by you." His words were cut short. Splat! The sound was awful, sharp, wet. The Guardian snarled, eyes glowing like fire, and speared his hand forward. His clawed fingers tore through Beerus's chest, bursting out his back in a spray of shining purple blood. The scene froze for a second. The battlefield fell into stunned silence. Goku's breath caught in his throat. Vegeta's eyes went wide, his whole body frozen in disbelief. Lord Beerus's energy signature plummeted, faster than any of them could process. The god of destruction's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came, just a silent gasp, a flicker of breath. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. His arms dropped lifelessly to his sides. The Guardian ripped his hand back with a sickening pull, letting Beerus fall. The Destroyer crumpled to the cracked earth, first landing hard on his knees, then tipping forward into the dirt. A huge, bloody hole gaped in the center of his chest. He didn't move. No way, Vegeta whispered. The Prince of All Saiyans felt a cold tremor in his gut. This couldn't be happening. Lord Beerus, the Destroyer, the god who trained him, the being who once threatened to wipe out Earth over pudding, was dying, right before their eyes. Though they had sealed him away once, though they feared his wrath, they had never stopped respecting him. He was a force of nature, a god of terrifying pride and cosmic strength, and they hadn't killed him when they had the chance. Because part of them believed he might be needed again, and now that hope was gone. Beerus's golden eyes, once sharp, fierce, and filled with endless years, dimmed. He stared blankly at the sky, unmoving. Flickers of memory flashed in his gaze. The quiet smile of his friend Whis, the flavors of Earth's food dancing across his tongue, battles fought across galaxies, and those rare moments of true peace, all of it drifting away. Whis, he whispered softly. The corners of his lips twitched into a small, tired smile. I'll join you now, old friend. He had always known his time would come, but two things gnawed at his heart. First, he never got the chance to avenge Whis, to strike down the Grand Priest who betrayed them all. And second, he never finished training Frieza. The Cold Emperor had shown promise. He'd even stood beside Beerus on this final suicidal mission. Over time, the two had grown closer. Strange, how fate worked. Beerus's eyes drifted toward the broken form of Frieza, laying in the distance, battered but alive. "Goodbye, Emperor," Beerus said. His voice was barely a breath, but Frieza heard it. Eyes wide, he turned his head toward the fallen god. Then, with a final cough, one last splatter of divine blood, Beerus collapsed face first into the dust. The god of destruction of Universe 7 was gone. A silence heavier than any scream blanketed the battlefield. No one spoke. Even the Guardian paused above the ruins, floating in cold, detached stillness. He looked down at the corpse beneath him and let out a low, mocking sound. He spat. "So much for your god of destruction," he said, voice laced with disgust. "Pathetic." The word hit like a hammer. It echoed across the battlefield, into the hearts of every fighter left. Goku's fists trembled. He stood rooted in place, his eyes locked on Beerus's broken form, his heart twisted with rage and sorrow. He killed Beerus," Goku whispered. His voice cracked as he said it, disbelief thick in every word. Vegeta stood just behind him, silent, jaw clenched so hard it looked like his teeth would break. His face twisted, not just in fury, but in raw, shaking shock. Part of him wanted to explode, to launch forward in a screaming charge, fists blazing, no plan, just payback. But a hand stopped him. Piccolo. He gripped Vegeta's arm, firm and steady. "Calm down," Piccolo said, his voice low and clear. "You burn through what little energy you have left, you're done." He looked at both Saiyans, Goku and Vegeta, with a sharp, measured gaze. "We need you both," he added. "Brohan and I, we can't hold him off much longer." And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.